Hello to all our friends in Morogoro. Welcome to session 3 of the Pixel International ARR coaching sequence. Habari, a very warm welcome from Jumbo. I hope you're all well. And today we are going to take a look at, in more detail, the next steps in the active reading cycle that we've been developing with you online. So just to recap a little bit about where we are, we started this as a coaching program, which was aiming to be interactive online. And we had some technical difficulties. So for those of you who are watching this now, you will no doubt be looking at it on the YouTube link that we have uploaded to the Pixel app. And there you can find the first 2 sessions and the PowerPoint slides and this session. And we will be finishing the entire course in about 2 weeks' time. So just to put this into context, if you remember our Pixel steps to school improvement, well, this is step 5. This is diagnosing the right topics. And we have thought for some time now that reading in English is a barrier to some of your students as they attempt to improve their exam outcomes. And so we've put together this coaching program, and we still very much want some feedback from you on this, but it's the Active Reciprocal Reading program that we took to Morogoro earlier this year. And I know I've had some people, some colleagues from Morogoro just this week saying they've been able to access the initial sessions, the first 2 sessions, and they're looking forward to this one. So here's session 3. So similar to the first 2 sessions, we're going to do a recap. We're going to very quickly go through sessions 1 and 2. We're going to re-examine the aims of active reciprocal reading and the 5 steps that go with it. We'll also be discussing progress in our different schools, and I know from your feedback that some of you have already started. And we're going to look at a date for the next session. This says session 3 there. We're going to look at not so much a date I'm going to give you now, my commitment that I will have done sessions 4 and 5 by the end of August. So here we go. What were our original aims? Well, as I've already mentioned, we were looking to improve students' reading of English in schools in Tanzania. And if this course is successful, and it looks very promising at the moment, then we will attempt to use this and adapt it for other areas of Africa. We're going to do it by working with you because this is a partnership, and we want to work together with you because although we have experience of active reciprocal reading in the UK, we are still at the early stages of developing this program for use in countries such as Tanzania, and in particular with students whose first language is not English. There are 5 sessions. We will be completing them in the next 2 weeks. If you are in a school and you are doing ARR now, we would encourage you to get other teachers involved, other students involved. And we're going to be looking at some control techniques, because one of the big issues with active reciprocal reading in the Tanzanian context is that you have larger class sizes. Now, that needn't be a barrier. We have some simple techniques to offer to you to help you develop these ideas with larger groups. And in fact, in the UK now, I have colleagues who are looking at how to use these techniques with larger classes themselves. So it's something that we're working on at the same time as you. And then finally here, we're asking you to do reciprocal reading little and often. We wouldn't expect you to do an hour's lesson. It would be far too long. What we're looking for you to do is the 5 steps regularly with students so that students begin to understand for themselves and then they can take this technique away, and when they're reading on their own, when they're reading their own books, they can practice it and become more efficient readers themselves. So our role, just to recap, is to explain the program and to go into more detail, which is what I'm doing today. When you give us some feedback, we're going to use that to develop and improve the program. We'll be offering you advice and guidance based on our experience, my experience in particular in the UK, but we want to learn from you as well. Now, what we hope you will do is continue working with your students, continue trialing ARR, because we think it could have a real benefit. We hope that you will try it with a range of texts, not just a couple of texts, but keep going and expand the range of texts that you use. We are looking to you to adapt and to tweak the ARR 5-step process to see if you can get it working better for your students, and then to let us know. So you get feedback from your students and provide us with that feedback so we can improve the technique for use in other areas. So this is a kind of an action research approach, because we are professionals, we have experience in ARR in schools in the UK, but you are the professionals in Tanzania. And we'd like you very much to reflect on your students' responses. If you can, collect some evidence. When we were in Morogoro earlier this year, there were some wonderful video clips that we have now been able to use on the app of people using ARR with their students. And it was very exciting. So we'd like you, maybe some brief notes, maybe you could observe students and their reading behavior. And if you can, if you have access to an iPhone or some means of recording, then take a quick film clip and send it to us if you can, so that we then start to learn from you. We learn together. And this is the essence of action research. It's looking, observing, collecting evidence, and then reflecting on that evidence to improve. So we all become the experts in the cycle. And speaking of the cycle, here it is. So the active reciprocal reading cycle is activate prior knowledge so that you help students remember what they already know. You ask them to predict, maybe from looking at the cover, maybe from a chapter heading, and then you read. Now, reading and clarification are the focuses for today's session. So predict, read, then clarify, then question, then summarize. And then step aside and ask students to review and reflect. Did you find that easy? Do you think prediction was a simple step? Were there many words you had to clarify? Were there questions you couldn't answer? Or do you find summary difficult? Do we need to do something about that to help you? So you ask them to reflect about their use of the 5-step process. Now, we hope you will be continuing ARR in your schools. And just to emphasize again, the importance of taking feedback from students, from your students, as they experience ARR. So if you can, continue to implement the ARR cycle, collecting evidence. Use oracy or talk as often as you can with ARR, because that unlocks their potential. It helps students to feel comfortable because they can talk with each other, they can ask you questions, and it helps them gain an insight into the process. And if possible, if you can invite other colleagues into your lessons so that they can see the benefits of ARR and use it with their students, that would be brilliant. Now, I know that many of you will have trialed ARR already. One of the ways in which it's going to have an impact across the school is if you can extend the number of students. Use it with more students, get more teachers doing it. And to do this, it would be very useful if you could demonstrate, particularly paired talk to other staff members, so they understand how, in a large group of students, pupils can work in pairs and become much more efficient at supporting each other and responding to you as teacher. That then will enable more students to participate. It will encourage them, it will give them confidence, and they will feel better about making contributions, speaking out in the lesson. You can also tell other staff about students who are doing particularly well, and you can explain to colleagues how they can use these paired discussion techniques as a control mechanism, as a control technique in classrooms. Now, little and often, what we say about active reciprocal reading is it shouldn't be for very long in the classroom, maybe 15 minutes, perhaps twice a week if you can manage that. Little and often, short, snappy, mini lessons based on what you're doing anyway, a text that you're already reading. If you can use the ARR terms, predict, read, clarify, question, summarize, use those terms in class, students will start using them, and praise them when they do start to use those terms. Now, some weeks ago, I sent you a planning template. No one yet has responded to tell me this has worked, but if anybody could, particularly on WhatsApp, that would be very useful. So that's our recap. Let's have a look at what we're doing today. We're going to be looking at reading and clarifying. So predict, read, clarify, question, summarize. So we're going to look at reading and clarification. And that involves talk, students talking to you and to each other. We sometimes in the UK call talk oracy. So when you're working in a 15-minute session, you don't want to choose very much text. A small amount of text is all you need for an active reciprocal reading session. I've suggested 2 paragraphs, no more, because we're demonstrating the process of reading so that students can learn to do it for themselves on their own and be independent. Please don't try and read the whole chapter or the whole textbook or the whole novel using ARR, because you'll never get through it. All we're doing is demonstrating a reading technique in a short, snappy way. So during the reading section, so you've activated prior knowledge, you have asked students to make a prediction, you come to the reading. Now, there are 4 ways that students can experience reading. It can be visual, straight from the page. It can be oral. They can listen to someone reading it. They can share the reading themselves, and they can be active in thinking about it. Now, we've developed 4 different ways in which you might want to experiment reading in your classroom with your students. Teacher reading, that's you reading to the students. Echo reading, where you read, students respond. Student paired reading. And finally, performance reading, when some confident students might be persuaded to stand up and read out themselves. Now, you will know your students better than I do, and you will know when those confident students are ready to do that. So maybe performance reading might take a little time, but it's a very powerful way of engaging the whole class. So don't forget that one if you can. So let's go through those 4 techniques. Why do we say that it might be the teacher that reads in that predict, read, clarify, question, summarize? Well, usually, nearly always, you, the teacher, are the best reader. You will have a good grasp of English. You will be able to be clear. You can read in advance and practice before the lesson. And you can also use your voice to indicate where there should be emphasis in the text. So if I read that second bullet point there, as if I was reading it to my class, it's an opportunity to read for emphasis, modulation, pace, punctuation. Now you could hear how I was pausing, sorry, for the commas. So you can help students understand the reading, the text better by carefully planning the way you use emphasis, the way you modulate, the way your voice goes up and down, how quickly you read, and when you pause for punctuation. So the teacher is the best reader, and it may be initially that you want to simply demonstrate good reading in English of the text, and that's fine. Don't stop there, but initially that's fine. The second way we suggest reading is echo reading. Now, we did this very successfully in Morogoro schools because students were very used to this and they seemed to enjoy it. So the idea is that you as the teacher read a short section, perhaps 2 sentences, 3 sentences, no more than that, and then students copy what you have read the same way so that they have the same emphasis, the same pace, the same modulation, that they recognize commas and full stops. So you read, they echo. That's a really powerful model of learning. And it's powerful because it engages everyone, it engages the whole class, and it's usually quite good fun. If you keep it short, it can be quite good fun. Also, when the students are echoing what you have read to them, you can listen. You can listen and hear which students are reading well and which students are not reading well, or perhaps not reading at all. And that will give you feedback. You'll also recognize how clear their expression is, whether they're effectively reading. So you're learning, you're getting feedback from your students. Now, why do we use echo reading? Well, it builds confidence. They can hear the text as well as see it, so it's vocal, and they can also hear themselves. They can hear you and they can hear themselves, and that builds their confidence because they can hear themselves reading in another language, successfully reading. The next way we would suggest that you read in class as quickly as possible is to have student paired reading. Now, you could do it the same way as echo reading. You could read a sentence or 2 sentences and then say to the group, right, in your pairs, you repeat, do it as an echo. They could read together, and that builds their confidence because they're not reading out loud, they're reading together, and they're discussing, did I get that pronunciation right? Did I have my emphasis right there? Was my pace okay? They are working together in a safe place, and that helps them work towards independence. Now, finally, of the 4 ways to read, that's teacher reading, echo reading, student reading in pairs, performance reading is very powerful. Particularly, and you can see I'm doing it with my hands now, particularly if you get students to use actions to emphasize the meaning. Now, this is very easy to do in a text. If you ask for some volunteers, you will get the most confident ones. You'll be able to praise and reward those students who do it. And this leads to confidence and independence. So if you use actions for emphasis, students get involved physically. They like that active involvement. It helps to clarify meaning. and it adds to the fun of the active reading approach. So performance reading, when your group is used to doing the 5 steps, try a little bit of performance reading and see how they go with it. So what have we done so far? We've talked about activating prior knowledge. We've done prediction, where students look at the cover or talk about what they've read and they make a guess, an educated guess about what's coming next. And that's important because it focuses their minds. And then we've talked about the 4 different ways of reading: teacher reading, echo reading, student paired reading, and performance reading. Now, in today's session, we're going to go on and look at clarifying. So, step 3 of active reciprocal reading is clarification. Clarify means to make clear. So picture this. You're working through an ARR session with your students. They've talked about what they already know, so they're focused. They've made a prediction, so they're very engaged, and you've read it, or they've echo read back to you, and you've done maybe 2 paragraphs of the text. Before you go on and ask them questions, it's very important to clear up any misunderstanding. And we call this step clarification. It's very simple. There might be 3 or 4 words in those 2 paragraphs that students find difficult, that they don't understand. And that's fine. What we suggest is that you simply give them the definitions. This word means this word means this one means this. And then all of that difficulty is put to one side. It removes any doubts. It's sometimes in this country called decluttering the text. It removes all of the obstacles, and then you can go on and question them in more depth. Now, clarification can be done in a couple of ways. The first way is you, as the teacher, can simply look at those 2 paragraphs and decide which words need to be clarified, and you can tell the students. That's fine. But it's even better if you can ask students if they've spotted any other difficult words, because they may have a word that they're struggling with that you didn't know about. Now, usually in the ARR process, for students to put their hands up and say, "Sir, I don't know what this word means," takes quite a lot of confidence. When I've done this with schools in the UK, it's usually 2 or 3, maybe longer weeks before students have the confidence to do that. You may have more confident students and they may do it straight away, and that's good. But usually it takes them a little bit of time. So initially, you clarify the words for them and then say to them, "Are there any other words you'd like clarifying?" And just wait and see. So why do we clarify? Well, clarification removes the main barriers to understanding. And secondly, it gives students the confidence to make sense of the whole passage. Because the next step that we're going to look at in the next session, questioning, really teases out understanding and asks students to dig deeper into the text. And to get them to do that, we have to clarify first. So, teacher clarifying, quickly and clearly explain 3 or 4 difficult words. Very easy. Prepare it in advance. You can think, what do my students need to know? I can tell them. If you can, get students to clarify as well, because it's an opportunity to get them talking, to ask their own questions, and that's a crucial skill. It will give you as the teacher an insight into what students know and what they don't know. If they're saying, I don't know this and I don't know that, then they're obviously quite a lot more to learn, perhaps, than you realised. And this helps to build confidence and independence amongst students. So this is where we're up to in the active reading cycle. We know about activating prior knowledge. We know about prediction. We've got different ways of actively reading that are based on talk, and we know how to clarify. There are 2 more sessions coming up, questioning and summary, and I'll be getting those to you in the next couple of weeks. So what have we done and what might we do next? Well, with Mr. Fundy's support, we have, obviously, as I've mentioned before, run the ARR workshops in Morogoro schools. We've got schools in the coaching program, and there are other schools from Morogoro who are on the WhatsApp messaging, and they're getting involved as well, which is great. And we've now completed sessions 1, 2, and 3 of the program, and they are going to be very shortly on the app, either as the PowerPoints or the link to YouTube, where you can watch me as often as you can possibly bear. Next, we're going to have a look at questioning and then summarising, and then we'll have all the PowerPoint slides uploaded by the end of August with the YouTube links. It's got ASAP there, but we've worked out how to do it now, so they'll be up shortly as well. So just a reminder, we've got the Pixel app, which you can access. We'd love to have your feedback. The YouTube links will be there. All sessions will be completed by the end of August, and session 4 is coming up shortly. Looking forward to speaking to you again. I hope this all helps. Get back to us on the app if you can. Bye-bye now.